All right, cool beans. We are live, and my good friend Abe Sias, who's been with us before, he's on here once again. I want to say hi to everyone, Abe.
How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's having a blessed Sunday.
Yeah, man. The last time you were on, we talked about spirituality and stuff like that. I know you're into that kind of stuff, and I am to a certain degree, but but also, man, you've been doing a good job, man. You've been posting a lot of uh, like different cryptids and myths and legends and stuff like that. And
Yep.
I'm just wondering, what got you into that? Is it something that just kind of happened, or
Well, uh, I knew about mythology and stuff like that, but it just happened because on the sites of man, I've seen some of the things people post. But there's a lot of different. I guess every culture sees something differently. Like for example, La Llorona, she's called different names in different cultures because she's been spotted in other cultures. I believe in other countries she's called a whaler.
right?
So it all kind of makes sense. Like when mythology. When I was in junior high literature, they talk about mythology and all that about the gods, and if they're teaching it in school, is it true? Is it not true? You can't really take it out of the equation, especially if other countries talk about it. There's
Yeah,
so many. There are like I guess the devil is called many names, like Hades, and he's called other names.
right,
And
right.
different cultures.
Yeah, for a long time I didn't really pay attention to these different myths, these different legends, and even folklore for that matter. And I think a lot of these things they came up. Uh, they started somewhere. There's a root somewhere,
Yes,
and
it's kind of like the Catholic religion.
right,
When the Catholics they went trying to recruit people to come into the church, they mixed it up. Uh, that's why they have statues. Sometimes people say statues are like five false idols, and what they did that is so people can come worship what they believe in. Whether it's Jesus or whatever they believe in, to come and worship. It's kind of like idolism because they're statues and they believe in that. Kind of like in the days of uh, in Europe,
right.
they had a lot of statues of goddesses and stuff like that. Kind of reminds me of that. It's like they they opened an avenue for any believer to come into that church, into the Catholic Church. Uh,
Okay.
and I'm thinking that's one of the reasons there's a lot of activity sometimes that happens there within the churches.
Yeah, yeah, and that makes sense. That makes sense, and it's kind of like what you were talking about too, is how like these different cultures have these beings, and they're basically all the same around the world. And I guess everybody kind of integrates all that into their culture, or and not really
Yeah.
not even culture into certain regions. People experience the same thing.
Yes.
You know, I don't think sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with culture. I think sometimes it does, but a lot of times just certain regions it's in itself, and there's different cultures in a region that can experience the same thing, and that in itself is interesting because that to me that shows that there is something going on, and it's not just a culture or a religion.
Yes. But I've been doing a lot of that, just looking into things and putting it out there so people can see different perspectives. That there's things that exist. I've seen so many things. Crypto wise and spiritual wise that I know other things exist. It's just sometimes some people don't uh, haven't had that experience yet, but when they have the experience, then they'll understand what I'm talking. What I've been trying to say
Right.
all along. Yes.
Yeah, and um, something real quick. I guess it's I don't want to get off track, but
Oh, that's fine.
um, I had someone who was recently in Afghanistan,
Yes.
and they asked me about the giants. They asked me to say, "Hey, do you know anything about these giants in Afghanistan in Kandahar?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I know a little bit about it. I've heard stories." And he said, he told me, he goes, "Yeah." He said, "The locals there talk about it. Have you ever had anybody talk about the Kandahar giants to you, or the giants over there in Afghanistan? Period."
I didn't hear about nobody talk about no giants in Afghanistan.
Right.
I mean, I've heard the story about they caught a giant out there, and
Yeah.
then I've heard some stories where there was some bat-like creatures or that were in caves that
Right.
some soldiers ran into, and some
Hmm.
of them got attacked. Some of them died, I believe.
Hmm.
I've heard stories like that, but I have heard of what I've experienced when I was because I went like to the Muslim world. They believe in other things, and one of the things they believe over there is the jinn, and
Right.
I believe that has attached itself to many soldiers, and I got to see that because I live in right by Fort Hood,
Mm.
so I could see a lot of soldiers affected by it. That's why they're hallucinating or seeing these things because of the jinn. It's attached to them.
Right.
I had a soldier friend. Well, he was married to my best friend's daughter, and he was
Mm.
affected by it. When he came from over there, he was acting weird, and I would always go pray for him. And he had a negative attachment pretty bad on him,
Right.
that he even tried to kill his family.
Yeah.
But they separated. But I tried my best to get that a negative attachment off of him. But he was coming from out there from the Iraq War. You
Mm.
could tell like a big difference on him. I've been to combat and I fought on the front lines, and I've seen some things out there in the front lines. Like you don't want to. You think about it like as well. Is that the adrenaline rush is making me see these things that are out here, or is it really something out here? Because what I seen, I was in the front lines and it was just the sand and the enemy. And when we got close to the enemy, I could see something flying around, like jumping into the enemy, and then all of a sudden I could see their eyes. Their eyes would glow like yellowish, and I guess I don't know if it's dealing with a balance or when somebody's going to pass away, but you could see something flying around out there. So that's when I did the sign of the cross. And, I had already prayed before I went out, but the sign of the cross because I was seeing something jumping into the enemy, and then they would like
Yeah.
change, like it was using them as a vessel to come up to try to fight us, but
Right.
most of those people, they died, some of them
Yeah.
survived, but you could see it. You could see this. I call them negative attachments, which to me is like these unclean spirits that are flying around, finding a host, and they
Mm.
were jumping into the soldiers.
Yeah.
And like I said, you could actually see it in the glow of their eyes because their eyes they were glowing yellowish,
Hmm. You
and then
know.
they were coming out of holes out of the ground because they had underground bunkers or foxholes.
Okay.
They're coming out of the ground, and their eyes they were yellowish, man. Like, oh, like what? I mean, because I was going in my tank, but they were popping right in front of the tank, and their eyes were yellowish. I was like, why are their eyes that color?
Right.
They were yellow, and I never. No, I was around a lot of people for different countries, that were out there with us or allies,
Hmm.
but I never seen somebody with yellow eyes like that, and they
Right.
were coming out of the ground like that. It makes me wonder about if there was a reptilian base there or something, because they're
Yeah.
coming out of the sand,
Right.
you know.
Right.
You ain't see you see no fortress, no nothing. They're coming out of the sand like that.
You know what's funny? I listen to some of these stories on YouTube, and I've actually heard people describe that.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you tell me that. Well, it's not funny, but it's just
Yeah. I mean, that's what I seen. I was right there
yeah.
in the battle on Medina Ridge. It was the biggest tank battle that was out there. The biggest tank battle, and that's what I seen, man. It's kind of how should I say? I'm a spiritual person. I've always been a spiritual person. I always believe in God, and I remember before we were out there, I prayed with my fellow soldiers, even though some of them didn't believe in God. Some of them were atheists, and and they were like, "Well, how are we going to survive this?" Because we found out the night before we're going to be in the front, right? And it's like, well, the only way I know you can survive something is by placing God first. And I said, well, I don't believe in God. I said, well, if you want to survive, you better start believing in Him right now because I'm fixing to pray. If you want to hold hands, be part of the prayer. Let's all hold hands, and we all hold our hands. Didn't matter what believed in what. We just call upon Him to come and help us, and we all survived, made it back. But you could see when there's, like I always talk about, when there's anger, there's hatred or war, you're gonna see all kinds of other, should I say, spiritual appearances, special appearances, or spiritual threat that's always around us. It's going to show itself because it loves anger, he loves hatred, and he loves war. So he's gonna make himself known presence.
Mm.
I want to tell you a story. I don't think I've talked to you about this story. I had got in a I was in an accident, and I got in a they diagnosed me with epilepsy, right? So I had gotten a seizure out in California in NTC, and they took me to the medics, and they had me in a tent, right? So I'm sitting there in the tent, and there's this chaplain from Fort Hood was going to come and see me because he wanted to check up on me to see how I was doing.
Mhm.
So he comes in. There's a chaplain. I see him come in and said, "Where's a soldier there that had a seizure?" He comes up to me, and he said, "Hi, my name is Chaplain so and so," and he looks at me, and I said, "How you doing, sir?" And then he looked at me and he said, "Do you believe in God?" I said, "Yes, sir." And then he said, "Do you believe in demonic activity? Do you believe in demons?" That's what he told me.
Hmm.
So I'm looking at him, I was like, why is he asking me about demons? And I
Right.
was like, well, I've heard of it, something like that exists, but I place my faith in God. And
Mhm.
then he grabbed my hand and he said, "Let's pray." So he started saying something that I don't understand what he was saying. It was in English, it was in Spanish. I don't know what he was saying. So I didn't go with that. I started saying the Our Father within myself, and I said amen to the Our Father, not to what he was saying. He
Right.
turned around and walked away, right? But one of the things he had said, and this was the scary part, before he left me, he said, "Did your grandfather ever get demonized or attacked by a demon?" That's what he had told me, right? And I didn't think of nothing. I was hurting or whatever. He walked away, and then like 5 minutes later, a chaplain comes in. "Where's a soldier that had a seizure?" And he come to me and said, "Oh," and I looked at him and said, "The chaplain of Fort Hood already came to visit me." He said, "No, I'm the chaplain from Fort Hood."
Hmm.
So that person, wherever it was, I don't think it might have been a person. I think
Okay.
it said an opening to come and show its presence to me in the
Right. Right.
form of a chaplain, you know.
Right.
Uh, and the reason he asked me that is because I remember my grandfather when I was a kid that he did get attacked by something,
Hmm.
and I thought about it later on. It's when I was small. Uh, we was going to we had a chicken coop, and I remember we heard the chickens clucking, and he went into the chicken coop, and he said there was a possum in there, right? So as he went in there and he started screaming, so I was little, like 5 years old, six. I grabbed a stick and I went in there, to try to hit the possum. But when I went in there, I see my grandfather. He was up, elevated in the air. His feet are off the ground, and he's just screaming, and scratches are appearing out of just nowhere in his body, all over his body, his face, his back.
Hmm.
And I could see this dark, shadowy figure, a huge, very tall, that had him up in the air, and he had red eyes. And they looked at me. I looked at it.
Hmm.
Started. I always had faith. I always believe that God is always with me. So I'm looking at it, it's looking at me, and my grandfather falls to the ground, and it comes at me in the form of smoke, black smoke. As it's coming at me, I'm within me. I can feel the presence of God because I had love in my heart.
Hmm.
So he takes a left and he goes out the window. He breaks the window, makes a little hole in the window,
Hmm.
and the smoke just goes through the window. But then my grandmother's there and all my uncles are there. They were trying to find out what was going on, and I was trying to tell them about what I seen in there. Like, my grandfather was like, "No, no, no, no. It wasn't. It was nothing. It was nothing. It was just a possum." But he
Hmm.
was scratched up, man. I mean, I'm talking about big gashes on his body, his back. I mean, I
Hey.
seen him. He was bleeding bad. Uh, when he was in the hospital before he passed away, I seen those dark entities out there too, man. He was being spiritually attacked by this dark energies.
Right. And
So
hey, yeah, I
yeah,
did want to know where you grew up at. If it is
I'm originally from South Texas. South Texas.
okay.
That's where I grew up in South Texas, and my grandmother and grandfather, they're originally from Mexico, from Rio Bravo, and I believe my grandfather, he might have been Spaniard because I couldn't understand what he would say sometimes.
Hmm.
The way he talked, I couldn't understand what he would say. I would only understand a few words.
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. Yeah, man. That's that. Yeah, never told me that story. That's pretty crazy, dude.
Oh yeah, but that's been the story of my life, man. I think once you're open to that, not because you choose to, but because it could be about who's around you, and it's like all these gifts come. You're able to see things, you're able to hear things, you're able to feel things, and it's just a spiritual gift, and it's just what you choose to do with it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And I believe that's why I see a lot of things that I see, or I have these encounters that I have. Because the dog man is not the only encounter I've had. I've had this encounter with this Mothman-like creature when I was like around 7 with my dad. My dad knew what it was, I believe, but he never told me. He's still alive. He's like 70 something years old, and I always try to ask him, "Were you involved in something, or what was that thing that you showed me?" Because it was one evening. We had, what a mora tree is, a blackberry tree.
Okay. Okay.
They grow pretty big, the
Right.
blackberry tree sometimes.
Right.
And my dad had told me that he had a friend that was coming over, that he wanted me to meet his friend. And he told me, sit down right here. And he had me facing the house, looking at the house. I said, when he gets here, I said, I want you to turn around real slowly. I said, but when you turn around real slowly, don't be afraid, because he's our friend. He's your friend. All right, so I'm sitting there, and I've been there for like 10, 15, a kid, I'm getting impatient just sitting there. And then all of a sudden he says, all right, he's here, turn around real slowly. Remember what I told you, don't get scared. And as I'm turning around slowly, I see this dark, big bird-like figure on a tree, a dark shadow, and seen them red eyes, dark red eyes, man. I seen that, my senses kicked in. I took a run inside the house, and my dad is like, I told you not to be afraid, but I never went back outside. And now that he's older, I ask him, what were you involved in? I ask him, what was that? And all he tells me is, don't dwell in the past, just leave it in the past. He never
Right.
tells me what it was or what, but apparently it was something. But he
Right.
he,
Yeah.
he don't want to give me straight up answers of nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Was that something spiritual? Was it a flesh and blood creature? I mean, could you tell?
All in all, it was darker than the night, whatever it
Okay.
was, and I could see the red eyes. So I don't know what it was. I know later on we used to go to a ranch to visit some friends that live out on the ranch by, it was Hargill, and there was a rest stop. We take a left at this rest stop, and he ran. Have you ever seen the movie Jeepers Creepers or whatever? Well,
Right.
it was going down, and it had been raining pretty bad, and over there in the valley it gets flooded pretty fast. So
Right.
we're going down this dirt road, and there was a little lagoon, and the water had crossed over the road. So my dad was going slow on the road, right, because the water was over it, over the dirt road, and it was a lagoon to the right and a lagoon to the left. So it was going slow, so we could go to the ranch where our friends live. As it was going through there, we seen a fish. It was flapping in the water. So he said, okay, yeah, we're gonna get off and go get this fish. We can cook it out for fish fry. It was a big old fish. So we got off and we went to grab the fish. We grabbed the fish, and as I was grabbing the fish and my dad was grabbing the fish, then we hear a screech, a real nasty screech. Like, I mean, he just hurt our ears. And when I looked to the left, where the screech came from, it was in the middle of the swamp. It was a stump, and he was crushed down with his feet. He had claws. He looked like a bat-like. It was like smooth leather skin, and the face looked like a bat-like, but he had sharp teeth, and he was looking at us, and he had red eyes, right? So we're looking at it. It's looking at us, and he's screeching, and then next thing you know, it just goes up in the air, straight up in the air. And when it went stripping and bare, we grabbed. My dad got the fish. We ran into the station wagon, closed the door. We started going fast, and this thing started coming at us, and he scraped the top of the station wagon with his claws.
Oh wow. Wow.
And the ranch was like maybe 100 feet away, and we made it into the ranch safely. And he was telling his name was Shui. was telling them what had happened, and it's like, oh, you didn't know what's there, and he was saying that what that is some kind of, they call it the something demon, something dealing with a witch, something that creature lives there in that swamp area. That's
Oh
where it
wow.
resides. And I
Okay.
believe when I see videos, I seen a video of the valley that said that they seen something like that out there. Boy, I seen it a long time ago. It was in 70 something,
Hmm.
and I believe that to be true because I seen it. It was, the skin was smooth, but the face kind of looked like it was bald from the top, but it didn't look like a person. You could tell that it was human like because of the legs and the arms. The claws. They had claws, but looked like a person, but it wasn't a person because he was bald and looked like a bat from the face, but the body looked like a humanoid.
Okay.
And I'll never forget that when I was growing up that I seen that.
This wasn't the same thing that was in the blueberry tree.
That's you see, when it was in the blueberry tree, there's branches and all that. All I know, I seen something huge in there.
Okay.
Whether it was the same thing or not, I don't know. Whether my dad knew what that was,
Mhm.
I do not know. Like I said, I can never. Still alive. I really don't talk to him, but when I try to talk to him about things, because I want to make sense for me, so like
Right.
that I can protect myself and my son, right? If there is something of anything, I want to cut those negative ties. But he never says nothing. He keeps it to himself. He don't want to say nothing.
Yeah, Lipis made a comment, says it sounds like it could be the big bird of Texas that attacked people in the late 70s.
Yes, I got scratched by something when I was a kid. I remember that big bird he's talking about. We used to call it. They used to call it the big bird, and people were making fun of that there was this bird and all this. But yeah, it was
Mhm.
attacking people. At first the people were saying, "Oh, it's just a lechuza," that it's this
Okay.
owl thing. But no, it was actually a creature that was things that were happening was cattle was being mauled. They were finding cattle like all disembodied, goats. There was a couple of people that got attacked, but I know it tried to attack us. So it could. When I see the movie Jeepers Creepers, I mean that Jeepers Creeper guy is pretty big, but this thing is not that big because it's got to be light enough to be able to fly,
Right.
right?
Right.
So he's not that massive, but it's fast. It's got
Mhm.
like supersonic speed. Like, I mean, it flies fast.
Hmm.
What I seen.
Right.
Yeah, but that was a long time ago.
Mhm.
Back then they didn't have the technology they have now.
Yeah. 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 For sure. So, we kind of touched on the reptilians or the reptiles.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts about that? You think those things really exist? I know some people say they see them in the swamps, and like you
Uh,
said, you don't know if you
I
saw them in the.
believe they exist, and that the reptilians they exist, and they can mimic us. They can take our form.
Mhm.
I'm gonna tell you a story about why I know they. To me, I believe 100% they exist. It's in the same area. In Elms Grove. One day I was walking down the street because I wasn't going through the woods no more. I was walking on the highway to go to the store. As I was walking to the store on the highway, I heard pebbles flying behind me, and they passed me up real fast. And I turned around. When I turned around, I had my guards up because to me it felt like something was behind me. When I turned around, there was this guy. He was real tall, and the way he was running, his legs were moving weird, and he was coming out of the woods. And he's the one that made the pebbles kick. And I'm standing there waiting for him. And I said, "Hey, what's up? I mean, what are you trying to do?" And he
Yeah.
stopped, and I got my guards up, and he's not saying nothing. And I said, "What's your name?" And the only thing he tells me, Indiana, you know. So he tells me Indiana. So I waited for him to get parallel to me. It's because I don't want to give him my back because I didn't know if he was going to try to rob me or what.
Mhm.
So if I get parallel to me, I'll be able to defend myself. Um, so as we're walking, we start, he keeps along with me, walking side by side. This strange things happen on the bridge. It felt like we entered like a time warp, and everything was moving real slow. He was still walking right beside me, and on the bridge, you could see this clear, translucent creatures that they were translucent, look like owls of some sort, but they're translucent. You could see through them, but you could see the eyes. They were like reddish. And as the cars were passing by on the bridge, they were jumping in through the people, in through
Hmm.
the people. And I believe what they were doing, they're feeding off the energy of the people.
Okay.
And that's why I talk about openings. That I believe it was jumping into because it was seeing opening, so it was draining their energy. So as we were crossing the bridge, the cars were moving slow. He was walking right beside me, and as we crossed the bridge, it's like time went back to normal and everything started going fast.
Hmm.
So he followed me to the store, and I turned around and faced him to look him right in the face, and I gave him my hand. And I was looking at him. As I was looking at him, I said, "It was nice to meet you, Mr. Indiana." And I started radiating my love, like started praying with myself. And as I was looking him right in the eyes, his fingers felt weird. They were long and feel weird. They didn't feel like human like. And as I'm looking at him and radiating my love, uh, and I'm praying with him myself, and I'm looking at him and his face, you can see the skin, the flesh started opening up. You can see the green scales,
Right.
and he smiled at me. When he smiled at me, you could see the sharp teeth, reptilian teeth,
Hmm.
and he's looking at me. And he pulled back. He looks at me, and he just looks up to the sky like that. And when he looks down, you could really see it more than what I first seen. I could tell he was reptilian, and he just looked at me, turned around, and walked away. And that was the last time I seen him.
Hmm.
So the following day, I went to the same location, right? And I started calling him out. I just started yelling Indiana, and I had my camera. And I said, and I could hear something running in the tree line, like something was running through the bushes. And I'm calling them out, and I got my camera just waiting. And I hear something running towards me. I'm standing on the highway on the street. I hear something running, and it stopped. And when it stopped, I snapped a picture, right?
Hmm.
And I didn't. Nothing came out or nothing like that. But on the picture, you can see like there's something by the tree. I got the picture on my site on Positive Spiritualist, and I don't think I've placed it on a Spiritual Cryptid Encounter, but I
Hmm.
got it on Positive Spiritualist where you can see something, and those reptilians they can camouflage, man. They can camouflage themselves to
Right.
the environment. I believe even on Fort Hood when I was in the Army, I had an encounter with a reptilian on the tank. We were coming from a tank trail, uh, and it was me and my driver. We didn't want to stay out on the range, so I said, hey, let's go back to the mortar pool. So we're driving, and I got my night vision on. He's got his night vision on, and we're driving, and we just see this tall figure, and to us it looked reptilian, passed right in front of the tank, and he hit the brakes, and he didn't hit it, and he passed right in front of us, and my driver was scared as hell, and I grabbed the pick handle because when we train out there, we don't have no light ammo or nothing like that. We were just training, so I grabbed the pick handle from the toolbox that we have on the side right there. Open it up, grab the pick handle. I got off, and I'm just looking, and I'm just seeing if I see any trails on the dirt road. I'm not seeing no trails on the ground or nothing where he passed in front of us. And I just look at the driver. I said, you know what? Leave your lights on. Let's get the hell out of here. Jump back on, and we drove with the lights on all the way back to base. We parked the freaking tank, and then I just looked at him, and I said, you know what? We can't tell nobody the story, so we're just gonna keep it between you and me. And he said, okay, Sarge. And we just left that at that.
Hmm.
But I seen it. When you see the movie Predator, he had like some kind of cloak and dagger that he was changing color to the environment, like to blend in at nighttime. You can see it. That's what we seen through our night vision. We seen that like it was the different pixels on the whatever
Yeah.
he was using as a cloak and dagger. You could tell where he was changing the different pixels or whatever to try to camouflage itself.
Hmm.
We seen it, or it could have been possibly also that he might have had a faulty equipment or something that it showed itself to us. I just don't understand why it would jump in front of the tank like that.
Yeah. Hmm. It had to want to be seen, I guess, right?
It could have
Yeah.
been.
Yeah. He's wanted to mess with you or something. I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting. Never heard you tell me that story either.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories, brother, that I haven't. There was a soldier, a sergeant that had an encounter with a Bigfoot up on one of the ranges. Um, I was at that time I was in on tanks. I was working for S3, which is the Center of Operations
uh,
for Delta 212 Cav. I was in HEC 212 Cav and working in the S3 Center of Operations, and we had our little 577 set up, and then we were monitor the radio calls at nighttime. When they have to do radio checks, and there was a sergeant that was sent a distress call saying he was being attacked by something in the tower. So we jumped in our Humvee, me and a couple of guys, and we took off to his range. And all the other people from the other ranges sent somebody over there to help him, because you could hear him panicking over the net. So when we got there, the first thing I noticed was a strong smell, beastly smell of something. So I'm looking around, and he was up there. We went over there. He had the door barricaded with the tables and all kinds of stuff. Man, this guy was so scared. Just freaking smoking cigarette after cigarette. And we told him what happened. He wouldn't say nothing, wouldn't say nothing. And then he finally started saying that he was going to go downstairs to use the restroom, the outdoor latrine. And when he went down there, he said, I seen him. I said, what'd you see? And he said, I seen a Bigfoot. And he was there looking at me as I was going to go use the restroom. And then he come running at me. He said he come running at me. And so I ran upstairs and barricaded the door. This guy, you could tell he was being honest about it because he was scared. I mean, I'm talking, he was smoking cigarette after cigarette. I seen him smoke like 5, 6 cigarettes within like 5 minutes, man. This guy was scared, and freaking he was trembling and everything. But he said what happened is when he came towards him and he started barricading, that he was banging on the tower. You could hear the tower was trembling where he was getting hit. Boom, boom, boom. The range tower was getting hit by what he said, Bigfoot. He was getting hit. I won't say his name, but I try to contact him to try to get his story out, but I don't think he really wants to talk about it too much because it was something dramatic for him.
All right.
I got him on my friends list, and I sent him a message through Messenger, but to try to talk about it, but he really doesn't want to. He hasn't responded to me, so I figure he don't want to talk about it.
That's
but it happened on Fort Hood.
Oh, Fort Hood. Okay, I was gonna ask you. Yeah.
It happened on where he was at. He was on Trapnail Range, the Trapnail Range Tower. That's where it happened. Okay. Where they call it Trapnail multi range.
Okay.
That's where it happened. That incident on him.
Well, in that area, it's big for Bigfoots and even dogman sightings in that area.
Oh, I've seen a lot of things out there that you're like, what the hell is that? And it's like, oh, it's just you're thinking it's a deer or maybe a cow or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of events that happened there that make me wonder. I mean, when I used to work the Talk, which is the S3, it was one day, it was nighttime. I had the night shift, and then in the morning, the first sergeant or sergeant major that was in charge of he wanted me to go clean up a pile of shit that was by the tent. He said there was a nasty motherfucker that took a shit by the tent. So I'll go pick it up. I said I'll go pick it up, sergeant major. I'll pick it up, man. But when I went there, man, it was not a little pile of shit. It was a big pile of shit. And I'm like, wait a moment. There's no way this could be human. It was huge, man. I never, and the tents there, you have the camel thing, the strip. I was looking for hoof marks, like maybe for a cow, maybe that it might have been a cow, but there was no cow poop. It was just a massive pile of shit, man. And I had to clean that up. And until this day, I don't know what caused it, but I got a feeling I more or less know what it is now, But it was huge because I've seen how the cougar poop is, because there used to be cougars out there in the ranges, and on the trees you could see how the poop looks. I'm talking about, it was huge, man. And I've seen cow poop. There was no cow poop. It was, I don't know what kind of poop it was. Maybe you should have gotten a sample of that.
There you go. You could have solved the mystery. Yeah.
I was only like 19, 20 years old then, so I didn't know nothing. At that time, I didn't know. I mean, I would hear about Bigfoot when I was growing up, but I was like, oh, it's just, nothing big or whatever, till, I started having my encounters of the things like that. That's when I started thinking, well, maybe it is true.
Yeah. So, speaking of your encounters and your whole process to where you are right now, do you find it weird that people come to you now and tell you stories, or
No. It's just, I was like them at one time. I was like them. I would keep a lot to myself. I really wouldn't say nothing to nobody, because some people might not understand. And instead of you opening up to somebody and being truthful with them, they might not believe you, and then all of a sudden you go from trying to open up to somebody, and then they have a convention for you, an intervention,
Yeah.
thinking you're crazy. You know, that's what happened to me
Yeah.
when I was telling my brother and sister what I was going through. Next thing you know, all my brothers and sisters are at the house, and like, what's going on? You know, they were trying to have an intervention for me, saying that I needed help and all this stuff, and then it's like when that happened, it's like I really kept things to myself.
Yeah.
I didn't tell them nothing no more because, you know, they were thinking it was just my imagination. But I have witnesses that did come to investigate, that knew me, and they had their encounters there, and things happened to them which they knew what I was saying was the truth. You
Yeah.
know, because
Yeah.
of
I remember when all that was going on, and I remember when the people went over there, and like, yeah. So yeah, I remember when all that was going on at your place, and I remember what.
I'll tell you, I wouldn't invite my worst enemy. I would just tell. I know there's a lot of people with curiosity, and a lot of them come during the day, but I try to tell them, so look, if you really want to find out, stay here for nighttime, because at nighttime is when it really picks up. There's things that happen there during the day too now,
Mhm.
but at nighttime it's when the activity really picks up. It's pretty strong and heavy in that area. You know,
Mhm.
I just glad that I moved out of there. I got tired of those, I should have said, those shadow figures,
Mhm.
because it wasn't just the dogman that I seen and encountered there, or maybe a possible Bigfoot. It was also this shapeshifter thing, likes, and his shadow figures that would come to my house all the time, and they had, just put it this way, they had the ability to open up the front door and the sliding door. There was one night that I seen somebody looking through the crack of my door, because it was a mobile home, so it has a little crack,
Mhm.
and I thought it was my sister looking through the crack like this, looking at me. You know, I said, "Hey sis, what are you doing?" And when I opened the door to my bedroom, I seen her going around the bend like this, where the ditches are, going towards the sliding door. So when I go by there to turn to look, I seen the sliding door closing, and it's looking at me, and I'm looking at it. And I was like, what the? I was like, that's not my sister, and he's looking at me, you know. And then when I open the sliding door, it's just taking off, but it's not even walking like a regular person. It's off the ground, you know. It's
Right.
just going, and then it starts going through the trees. It uses the trees. It starts going in through the trees, starts jumping from tree to tree. Uses it as an energy source. No, because trees, they have energy, right? So it's using energy sources that it can use to move
And this was all in where again?
in Elms Grove Estates.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That was
And
around what
it,
Queen area?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There was one where there was this. Well, shooting pool one night, and there was this lady that had a flat tire, and I was with a friend, and I told her, look, so I hope you change your flat, but just give me a ride. It's okay. So I changed her flat, man. She go drops me off at the side of the house, you know, and I was like, she was like, well, thank you for helping me fix my flat. That's no problem. And as we were talking, she's like, I think there's somebody standing behind us. And I look and I see something standing behind us, and then she says, oh my God. And there was something to the left, something to the right, there was something to the front. It was four of them that surrounded us, you know. She's like, what the hell is that? You know? I said, look, I said, just, I'm gonna go outside. When I start praying, you go. So I opened the door, it closed it, start praying, and she backs out and takes off. And when she's taking off, I see something going after her, you know. And I'm praying, saying, "Dear Father," you know. You know how I tell you, sometimes it can find an opening on somebody, and if there's an opening on somebody, it's gonna try to use that opening to attack them. So she's leaving, and I get a phone call. She said that when she was leaving the park, that that dark figure come and hit the back of her car and try to hit her car so hard that it almost drove her off the road
Yeah.
as she was exiting the mobile home park.
Right.
And that was the last time she ever came by to visit. She said she didn't want to do nothing with that area.
Mhm.
She was scared. Uh,
Yeah. You've mentioned a few times about people leaving an opening. And I've seen like people like on Facebook, they'll post stuff or ask the question, do you
mhm.
think people who are like schizophrenic and or have any other mental disorders, you think they're allowed. I mean, they're allowing an opening, and that's adding to their condition. And we might think they're really crazy, but in reality, they have these attachments.
Those are openings, attachments. Like I always talk about unforgiveness, right? Because unforgiveness is dealing with something bad. You know, when you don't forgive somebody, it's because they've done something bad, or maybe you have hatred towards them. So the hatred of the unforgiveness is the opening.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm telling you, this spirits that can sense you, that you don't have to say, they already know you. They know, they see the spirit, just like I can see the spirit. They see my spirit,
Mhm.
so they know when I can go silent and not pray within here my mouth. I can pray within myself, but they already know that. So when I start praying within myself, they disperse.
Mhm.
When I'm not praying and I'm just when I have the curiosity could be an opening. For example,
Yeah.
if you hear a tapping sound, this is what I like to say a lot. When you hear a tapping sound, then it goes from a tapping sound to a knocking sound, and then it goes from a knocking sound to a banging sound. That's an opening because you're hearing something. As you're hearing it, you start believing in it. So if it's something that's spiritual, right, then it's the opening is right there because you're already giving it the opportunity to show you more. You know.
Yeah, and I think we've had the discussion, or at least maybe you've even commented before on one of my
Yes.
about people who have like these bad entities or attachments in their house and trying to get rid of it. Like if they don't know what they're doing, they can actually make that worse, right?
Yeah, especially if they're not changing their ways, you know, because
I can
I've helped out people where they said things, and I tell them, I talk to them straight up and I tell them what's going on, and they tell me maybe something that might be an opening, and we pray against it. But then 2 3 weeks pass by and then we go do the same thing. Well, guess what he's going to do? They're opening the door for the same thing to come in, you know,
right.
and that's what happens. And sometimes it don't come by itself; it comes by with more,
Yeah, come back even
and
stronger.
that's what happens. Like there's some I've met people that are what do you call them, Wiccan. I've met
Okay.
people that believe in other things, atheists, and they've gone to the location saying that they can take care of whatever's there. But every person that came in that manner, they got spiritually drained. That I had to pick them up out of the woods
Mhm.
and carry them out of there
Okay.
because they got the energy drain, and then they start I ain't gonna say hallucinating because it's already attacked them. First, it works in the spirit, and then they start seeing them, and it comes to them, and it wants to hurt them. So the only thing I could do is pray for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I always tell people if they're going to a certain location to be prepared to prepare themselves. Some people say, "Well, I'm prepared. I got my weapon. How are you going to defend? Doesn't matter what weapon you got. If it's something in spirit and it's a spiritual battle, you better believe in something because it's going to attack you. They don't care if you got a weapon. Your weapon ain't going to help uh, shooting at something that is spiritual.
Right. Yeah.
You got to fight it differently. It's a whole different thing, and you have to fight it spiritual through prayer. You have to have some kind of faith or belief.
Right.
That's the only way you're going to be able to survive.
Mhm.
Me, even me, that I believed in God, I believe in God. Uh, I was being attacked daily, daily, and I would say, "Well, what am I doing wrong? Why am I getting attacked?" And honestly, I was getting hit in the back by an unseen force. I would fly 4 or 5 feet, and I would look. There would be nobody there. Shot from the front, hit from the sides,
Mhm.
hit in the back of the head. I mean, I was getting beat up by this unseen force there towards the end. Till I said to myself, "What am I doing wrong?" Then I thought about it very hard. So maybe I have an opening. And then I started thinking, well, you know what? I do have an opening. And the opening is I had anger and unforgiveness towards a couple of individuals from my past. So I forgave them truthfully. And that day that I forgave them was the day that they surfaced up. And when I mean uh, they, they surfaced up in my room. It was four of them. And the show, there was just stark figures. And they told me that they wanted me to do something. But first they wanted to show me something, right? So they could talk telepathically, and they were showing me a picture, an image through the mind, and they were showing me where they came from. They said they were from Sinai, and they were like torturers or demonic, and they were showing me all these people that were tortured and the things that would do to them. where the flesh will come off and on, and they tell me, we want you to take your life. If you take your life, we're not going to mess with your son. But you see, I had already asked for forgiveness truthfully to God. So then I've studied the Bible. Then I said, well, first of all, my son's protected by the Heavenly Father, and he's his own person. And me, I take authority over you right now, and I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ. As soon as I said that, they faded away, and that's the last time that I got physically attacked by this unseen force. That was physically, it was not just spiritually, it was physically attacking me.
Right.
It stopped. Everything stopped. And then from there on, that's when I moved out of that area and moved over here to Temple, and things just ceased. But I still have the spiritual gift of seeing things and stuff like that. But I just had to get out of the area. I didn't want nothing to happen to me or to my son, so I left. I left 4 years ago.
Okay. So what does your family think about you now?
Oh, my sisters, they will have a better relationship with them. They invite me. They invite me to the barbecues now.
That's good.
Trust me, bro. They didn't. I'll be like, I'll be having my phone just taking pictures.
Yeah.
They'll be like, "What's the matter with him?" And they're like, "Why come you always taking picture?" So I'm just, it's my senses were going crazy, man. I was like, just imagine you're at a party, you're somewhere, you hear somebody say something, you snap a picture, or you feel something, you're snapping. I was snapping pictures because I was trying to get proof of what's
Right.
happening to me.
Right. Right.
If you look in the side positive pictures, I took many pictures, man, and in some of those pictures you can see something there. Sometimes it takes time for it to develop, and you can see something. The picture's not going to be perfect. Like a lot of things that I took pictures of was when, for example, I would hear somebody say something, or I hear a growl, or I hear footsteps coming towards me, like somebody's running towards me. I'll snap a picture,
Right.
and that's when I really had nobody to talk to. It was going through it myself. But
Yeah.
I just thank God that finally, when I asked for forgiveness or I forgave, that I let all those things stop. It was pretty heavy, man. I posted a picture on my site of like about 4 years ago, and I was out there in them woods, man. I was fighting spiritually, and you could see the darkness, and you just see my face like that. I
Hmm.
posted it. I posted it yesterday. It was under memories.
Okay.
It popped up with memories, and that was, I think it was in November. You know how I was telling you it was around that time frame.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
in November was the time frame when I had my encounter there in the woods, also around that time frame when the leaves starts falling down and it's fresh and cold here in Texas.
Right.
It's when I
Right.
had the encounter with a dog man out there too, that
Yeah.
the woman was
Yeah.
dealing for help.
Yeah. But yeah, I remember that perfectly. I always talk about that when I tell people about the dogman. Yeah. About your encounter. Yeah. So uh, I know we were supposed to talk about different cryptids and legends,
Oh,
but now
that's
we don't.
fine. That's fine.
I was gonna say, do you consider yourself like some kind of like an empath or intuitive or something like that? Because like I have people like now that I'm doing the paranormal stuff, I have people who like consider themselves, or I'm not gonna say consider
Yes.
themselves, people who are
Uh,
that,
I,
and what you described, they describe it the same way that
yeah.
sometimes
It's,
places
it's, it's
this energy from
yes.
different places.
Yes. I've been like that for a very long time. I know if I talked to you about when I was a child, that my brother was sick.
Mhm.
I know if I told the story, but I'll say it real fast. My brother was sick, and they couldn't find a cure for him. They're saying he was going to die. So they was trying to find somebody to cure him because what was happening to him, he had high fevers, and he was seeing snakes and spiders,
Mhm.
and he was always screaming, jumping, scratching, scared. And uh, there was a medicine woman from Mexico that said that she would cure him, but that I would have to stay with her for 6 months. Uh, and I didn't know that then, but I know that now. But I remember being with her for 6 months, and she in a little hut, and the floor was made out of dirt. Uh, and I would see her. What she did to my brother is she lit up a fire on the ground, on the dirt, and she grabbed an egg. My brother had an arm like this, and he had his leg. It was messed up.
Mhm.
Uh, and when he had the fevers and all that, and he started doing this thing with the egg, and she cracked the egg. When she cracked the egg, this little bird came out of the egg with a broken wing and a broken leg. I guess the maldad, the wrong, went into the egg, and my brother healed. His arm
Huh.
was normal, his leg was normal, and the fevers and everything that was happening to him stopped. But I had to stay there with her. So when I remember staying with her, she was a medicine woman. She wore the white dresses like back in the times of Pancho Villa. She was an old woman already. She was real old. She had a patch in her eye, and she walked with a limp because she had a bullet in her hip, and she
Damn.
had bullets across. And I remember going to the market with her, and all the people were moving away from her. They were scared of her, and she looked at me and said, "You're not afraid of me?" And I would just say, "I love you," and I would hug her, and she would flip her patch off her eye. You could see the hole. So you afraid of me now? And I would hug her, "I love you," and she would just smile. So then, at her in her little hut, uh, all these people that were being, I guess, spiritually attacked because it was dealing with the things of witches and stuff like that, where people get curses placed on them. So they will come to her. She was a healer.
Mhm.
So she's there healing with her hands. I'm seeing her. She's looking at me like that, and I'm seeing her going like that. Her fingers going into the people's stomachs. She'll pull up barbed wires. She was pulling scorpions out of people's heads, spiders, and then at times you could see this dark, unclean spirits leave their bodies. And she would look at me, "Are they gone? Are they gone?" And I see them walking. I see the shadows because of the fire. I see them leaving the hut, and they were leaving. I would just point that they left. And then I remember one day when, after so many helping her, I guess, heal so many people, there was a woman that came. I had barely come out of the outdoor latrine, and the woman started crying, and I'm looking at her, and I guess it was my mother. I had forgotten about her, and I've been there for 6 months,
Mm.
and she was crying, and I left with her with my mom.
Mm.
But you know, uh, I've whether you want to call it empath, yes, I have those. I call them spiritual gifts because I'm
Right.
able to
Mm.
see, hear, feel, make contact, however you want to say it. I guess
Yeah.
people have different names for it, but yeah, I'm spiritually gifted that way.
Okay.
Yeah, I've always been like this for a very long time.
Well, I think that's pretty cool. I didn't really know that much about. I mean, I knew that you kind of had those gifts. But I didn't know it was to this extent. And like you said, like I was saying that
I
you
feel
just
people. I feel people before when they're being spiritually oppressed by negative energy. I've casted the negative energies out of their homes. I go cleanse their homes. I've done this,
yeah.
and I send it away. I protect their homes. I felt up a lot of people in this manner.
Well, yeah, man, that's pretty good. I'm glad you're able to to help people out. Um, and do you try to anything specifically to try to enhance these abilities, or you just kind of go with it?
Uh, I don't. My abilities are pretty strong. What I do at a daily basis, brother, is when I work out, I like lifting weights. I meditate at the same time. I mix it in together. The
Right.
meditation and the sensing is all involved within my workout.
Mhm.
Or
Okay.
sometimes I go for a walk and I just listen. I concentrate on listening or close my eyes, see what I sense in that manner.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say because I think meditation is a big part of
Yes, meditation. At one time, I used to do like martial arts, and when I was younger in the army, like I said, this gets has been with me for a very long time. So when I was in Germany, I seen a lot of things out there in the billets.
Mhm.
I guess spirits of dead German soldiers. There was one that was always messing with me. Uh, I'll be sleeping in my bed, and I could hear somebody coming into my door, and I could hear, and then start choking me, and I'll turn on the light. There'll be nobody there, and it would happen for a long time. And then I found out towards the end, before I came back to the United States, up in the attic. I think that's where the soldier was, in the attic.
Oh,
The
okay.
spirit of this soldier was in the attic. We closed down the billets because they were deactivating the units. And when I finished painting the upstairs in the attic, I had dozed off on the paint can. And when I woke up, the number 666 was painted in between my legs, and I thought somebody had played a prank on me. So I went over there, but everybody's already off. It was like around 6:30. So that evening, I ordered a pizza and I was waiting for the pizzeria guy to come with my pizza. He gave me my pizza. When I paid him for my pizza, I had already moved to the other billets. The light in the attic where I was working at uh, turned on by itself, and then you see a dark figure just look at the window like this, and you could see the figure looking at me from the window, and then all of a sudden the light just shut off. For it must have been a strong entity to be able to turn on the light like that. And I told my first sergeant about it when we went back to the area, and we had all the doors locked, and they had seals on the doors. The seals were still the same ones we had placed, so there was no way nobody could have gotten in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got an interesting story to tell you. I've been wanting to tell you since you told me about the dark figure in the blueberry
Hmm.
tree. Uh, Someone called me up. They had heard the show. And they're like, "Hey, man, I want to tell you this story." So I'll share it with everyone too. They were watching this scary movie. It wasn't even so much it was scary, but there was a lot of horrible stuff going on in the movie.
Hmm.
Like a lot of horrible killings and stuff. And he's sitting on the couch, and all the lights are turned off in the house. And he said that the movie's almost over, and he looks over to his left into the living room. I mean, into the dining room, and he sees something black, like crouch down and go under the table. He said, even though it was dark, and like you said, it was
Hmm.
darker than night, right? This figure you saw was even darker than night. He said, even though it was dark, you could still see this figure crouch and go underneath the dining room table. And before he could say anything, because he thought, well, maybe I'm just seeing things. His sister-in-law goes, "Hey, I just saw something go under the table." I mean, not that it's funny, but it was just an interesting story, man. I wanted to share that with you guys too.
I guess it's this dark figures. Some people say that some of this dark figures that you might see that might be people that have been crossed over and they remain here on Earth as shadow figures
Mm.
to try to assist. But I don't know, man. When they come and open your door and they come mess with you at your house, I don't think they're trying to assist. They're
Yeah,
actually trying to. I'm not going to give them the power thinking this dark shadow figure is a family member.
right.
I'm going to rebuke it. I'm trying to get rid of it because this when they come to your territory, to your home, and you see them in your house.
Mm.
It happened to my nephew. One of my nephews had a son. He was like 1 year old, laying on the couch. He had fallen asleep on the couch, and I hear him crying. And I opened the door, and I thought it was my nephew over him changing his diaper, right? So as I'm looking at it, and I said, "Rick," that's my nephew's name. I see the door was open, and he takes off the door, and I yell, "Rick, Rick!" And I hear him in the back room. I said, "What, Unc? What, Unc?" Somebody was trying to take little Rick, and I take off running outside, and I'm following this thing. It's going down the street, and I'm looking, and I'm running, and it's not even running. It's just gliding on the freaking street.
Mm.
It's gliding, and it starts going from tree to tree. It's jumping from tree to tree, and I say, "Identify yourself," and I start praying to our Father, "Identify yourself." It starts flying up in the air towards the trees, and it started laughing. It was laughing like a man, and just went up into the branches, flying, gliding in the air. You know,
Right.
and that's the kind of activity that happens there on Elms Grove,
Hmm.
where I used to live. I'm just glad that I moved out of there. I seen that for about when I started seeing most of this activity was I moved there in 2002. So around 2005 was when I started seeing activity. But when it really got real heavy was like around 2013. Now I would hear things, see things, but I say, "Oh, it's just an echo." But that's when it started getting real heavy towards when I had my encounters towards the end.
Right. Right. Well, like I do a lot of Bigfoot research. I'm sure you probably know that,
Yes,
but
I know. I've seen your videos where you're out there in the woods and you're trying to find trails. I've seen in the area. Matter of fact, maybe you might know something about this. I meant to ask you because I know you're like going out there. Where I live, there's an area where there's bamboo sticks, right?
Mhm.
During this time frame, when it's fresh, if you go to the park, you find bamboo sticks uh, shredded in pieces all over the woods. I mean, all over the park, by
Right.
the swing set and by the slides. They're just shredded.
Hmm.
I was going to ask you, do you think that what cryptid could shred something like that?
Whatever it had to be strong. It would have to be strong to shred it like that. Because even like a smaller animal to shred it, you're gonna find little bitty splinters, or it'll take them too long. It's almost not even worth it, for a small animal to do that.
I'm
But there's,
talking about.
yeah, I was gonna say, but there is an area of the Sam Houston that does have bamboo. I need to go check that area out.
Well,
Yeah.
this pictures it was shredded, and then another thing that I found on the trails was pieces of wood blocking the trails. Like
Oh
they'll
yeah,
place the
yeah.
wood on the trails, and
Right.
I'm thinking that could be a squash. There was a neighbor, a friend of mine, that couldn't see well at nighttime, and she would walk her dog in the park, and she would call me if I could help her walk her dog. I said, sure, no problem. Then one day, uh, she called me saying that there was something outside her house. I said, what do you mean? There's something banging on the tree. I said, what do you mean it's banging? Well, we're gonna take the dog out there, and the dog came running back inside the house, and she had a big dog. The dog came running back inside the house. I said, and I took off running over there to see what's going on. So by then I go there, I just see a big old log thrown by her house, like where I guess it was banging the tree and it threw it toward. She said it threw the log towards her house, and I seen the big old log on her by her house
Right.
because she lived right by that area, right by the edge of the park, by the wood line. And I'm looking and I was like, is anybody there? And I'm looking, I don't hear nothing or anything. So the only thing I had to go was what she told me, But you said that whatever it was banging on the tree. And that's when I hear what they say about Bigfoot. This is some of the things that Bigfoot does. Another thing is the rocks. We're talking about cryptids, so we'll talk about Bigfoot. I'm thinking he has this capability. Um, I used to walk at nighttime down the road that goes by the park. It goes around the embark, and I was walking, and I was already tired because the night before I had walked like 13 miles. Because I love to walk. I would walk for exercise at that time. So I was gonna start my walk, and I was like, you know what, I'm kind of tired today. So I had barely passed that little area. I turned around, and when I turned around and started walking back, in the middle of the street, brother, there was a rock formation, a rocks circle, a
Right.
circle, a big circle with around 15, 18 rocks. And I'm
Right.
looking like somebody playing a prank on me, I was like, and then I'm like, there's no way because I just barely walked here. How could it be 15 rocks? They were pretty big rocks. They were placed. How can they be placed that fast?
Right.
No freaking way. It was a
Right.
big round circle in the middle of the street. And I'm looking to the bushes. I said, who's there? Who's there? And nobody say nothing. And I was like, man, let me get out of here. So I walked back to the house. But what do you think could make a rock formation a big? And the rocks were big, dude. They were big rocks.
Right.
It had a big rock formation in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
do you think?
They've been known to do that. Well, at least they've been suspected. No one's ever seen them do it. But it's something you hear all the time that they'll do these rock formations that you'll find them. People see them out in the middle of nowhere. The whole tree blocking the road thing. We hear that constantly. I had a friend of mine go down this road by Sour Lake, and as they went down, there was several trees that were crossing the road that he said looked like someone placed in front of these, so that no one could get in or out. And then later on, his brother went to go check the area out. He had a Bigfoot encounter, and on his way out, the same road he came in on, there was a tree blocking the road. But he said he had enough room to go around. He goes, I wasn't going to stop.
And some of the other things that place there on what I noticed, and this is where it gets confusing because I don't know if it's a dogman doing this or if I don't know if it's a Bigfoot doing this. Sometimes they place a dead animal in your path. Like when I would go walking,
Right, right,
and I'm walking the same quad, all of a sudden there's a dead animal on the path that I was traveling. There'll be a dead animal. It could be a dead fox, a dead possum, and I'm like, how did this get? Or when I would travel to, like, for example, take my son to school, I had here where I live now. I believe I see one by my house. I believe it followed me, and I seen it. I seen the white glowing eyes. And by the time I took out my camera to try to catch it, it was gone. Well, the following day, I was going to take my son to school. I ran into 3 dead animals on the road. They were in the middle of the road, on the road that I take my son. Like it was letting me know that I traveled that road.
yeah, yeah.
And that's where gets confusing to me whether it was a dogman doing that or a squash.
Yeah. I've heard of them doing that too. A friend of mine was out looking, and he was sitting down in his truck, and he was just. I think it was early morning, and a freaking coyote came across the hood of his truck. Someone
just threw it.
Yeah, just threw the coyote across the hood of his truck. But he's also found like he'll park his truck and then walk into camp, and on his way out he found a dead coyote right there in the path.
I
So
seen something like that when I was growing up. But you see, I had dogs, and I thought the dogs had done it, but there was no way. I was working out in front of my yard. It was when I was 16 years old, and my dogs had left the yard. And then I go inside to go drink some water. And when I come outside, open the door, I trip over something. So as I'm reaching to see what I tripped and I fell down, there was a head of a donkey on my doorstep.
damn,
This is in the valley.
yeah, is that the
And I'm
mafia?
looking, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And then I see my dogs, and my dogs are all like in a circle for me, half a circle. And there's a black dog that I don't even know whose dog it is. And it's like, my dogs are real obedient. I'm snapping my fingers for them to come. They're not coming. Or I'm patting my leg. They're not coming. And it seemed like the dog in the middle, which is the black dog, had control over them. And then when the dog turned around and left, I was praying. They came to me. It was weird. Strange things like that will happen in the valley all the time.
Yeah, yeah. The valley's a strange area. There's a lot of weird stuff that
Yeah,
happen.
I've heard of an area over there where you pass by at a certain time hour, they'll be throwing things at your vehicle.
Hmm.
They'll be throwing animals and hit your vehicle. And I can't remember which area, but I heard about a story like that. I guess in that area back in the time, I guess Pancho Villa would cross across the border and kill a lot of Hispanics that were on this side of the border. And there was a field down there where they were cultivating their skulls and all that, but they said it was where Pancho Villa would come and kill people, a lot of Mexicans or Hispanics on this side of the border.
Hmm.
So many stories that you don't know whether they're being truthful or not. But yeah, I've seen a lot of things out there in the valley also, but nothing to hide as heavy as what happened to me in Elms Grove. I mean, that was the first time I've ever gotten attacked in that manner. That I was getting attacked physically. You could say to me, it felt like it was trying to uh, not possess me, but it was just trying to take me out.
Yeah. Yeah. I had
But
a
I
friend
said,
of mine. He lived in Robstown. I don't know if you remember Robstown
yeah,
outside of Rivers. Okay.
yeah,
Uh,
my bishop.
yeah. When he was going out one night, and his mom didn't want him to go out. He's like, "No, I'm going out." He said he was at that time he was mean. He said he would cuss his mom out, talk real bad to his mom, and so this particular night was no different. He cussed his mom out. So I'm going out. You ain't stopping me or whatever. So when he came back home, he would come into the back door. They lived out in the open back at that time.
Yes.
And he said that he was trying to get into the back door. The back door was locked, and he heard this growling behind him. He said he turned around. He said there was this big black dog with red eyes that was just
Yep.
growling at him. And he said he started banging on that door. Mom, let me in, let me in. And she came and she let him in. He said after that he never talked back to his mom again. And he says he has no idea where this dog came from. He had never seen it before.
Yeah, I've seen a dog like that. When I lost my mother, the day that I lost my mother, my mother lost her when I was 15 years old. Uh, she had got murdered.
Mm. Sorry to hear that.
I went looking for her on my bike, and where I live is a small town, and there's a dirt road, and I was following the dirt road that goes around the town. It was a dirt road that I would go run because I was in track, so I was following this road to see if I could find her because they were looking for her. And I was riding my bike, just following my instinct. I prayed to God. I prayed to God to take me to where she was at,
Mm.
spiritually, because I believe we're all spiritually connected. So I'm riding this bike, following my instincts. Even then I had instincts, spiritual instincts. So I stop on this bridge, and I'm standing on this bridge. I get off my bike, and I'm looking, and I hear like a moaning. So I go on my bike by the side of the bridge, and there's a dirt road, and I'm hearing a moaning coming from there. Somebody moaning. So I start walking down the path, and then all of a sudden, from the pole, you see a figure stand up. And when I see this figure, he's got a hat, he's got a cape, he's tall, black, and you can see red eyes. And I believe what I encountered at the time was what they call the Dark Man
Yeah, the
or
Hat Man.
Hat Man, Shadow Man, whatever.
Yeah.
So he's looking at me. He's pretty tall, like 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". I'm looking at him. I'm just looking at him because I wasn't afraid. So I'm looking at him. He's looking at me. Then all of a sudden, he's gliding off the ground, coming at me. And that's when I got on my bike, and I got a little bit scared, you know. So I got on my bike, and I start taking off on the bike, pedaling, and I'm looking, and he's coming at me. Then when I look, it's not him no more. It's a dog with red eyes, like you mentioned,
Hmm.
and it's got a tail sticking up in the air. So I'm riding the bike, and around our town, there's a irrigation system for the fields, and goes around the town.
Hmm.
So as soon as I cross the irrigation system, it's underneath the street. I cross it and I stop and turn around, and the dog with the red eyes and the ponytail is looking at me on the other side of the road, but it's not crossing the water. It's staying
Okay.
on the other side of the water. It's looking at me, and I'm looking at it, and I could see the red eyes, and I'm just looking at him, and then it turns around and it takes long leaps. Like I'm talking about, it's not running like a dog. It just long leaps, and he takes off back the same path that I had just ridden.
Hmm.
So I make it home, and when I get home, my aunts are there, and they tell me, "Hey, get in the vehicle. You're coming with us."
Hmm.
So I go with them, and later on that night, that's when it started raining, real cold water, and at that time, it felt like to me that my mom wasn't amongst us no more spiritually, you know. So the police, they wanted somebody to ID a person that they believe it was her, and I ID'd her through a picture that they
Okay.
showed me.
Huh.
So the following day, uh, get a priest because I want to go to the area to where they found her, you know. So the priest goes with me. I get in the vehicle with the priest, and we go down that road, and he stops on the little irrigation street, and he stopped there. So it's right. He crosses the little track, and he goes up to that little bridge where I was the night before. And he's looking to the left. He's looking to the right. It's around here somewhere. Oh yes, and he crosses right there down the path where I was standing, and where the dark man appeared, and it was right there, man. I was probably like, I would say 9 feet away, 10 feet away from her that
Really,
night,
dude, that is crazy. That is
from
crazy,
her, from her body. That I didn't know she was there. But
man.
like I told you, I heard, and I believe, uh, you know, I believe they said that she died instantly, but I could hear somebody moaning, right? I could hear, but the spirits are strong, and my mom was a very strong woman. I bet she was very spiritually strong, and to this day, she's always around me. I sense her, so even though she might not be here in the flesh with me, she's always been in spirit with me all my life. In the military,
Hmm.
I'll tell you, man, I've been into situations where all of a sudden I hear her voice and she'll tell me something, and it's like warns me of something, and something happens. It's like she's there, her spirit is around. I believe we're all. That's why I would say we're all spiritually connected, and if we're spiritually connected to our relatives or our parents or the ones before us, right?
Hmm.
Uh, that's where we have to be careful, right? Because if somebody from our past has done something negative, had negative, it can carry around from generation to generation. So that's why you have to cut it and say, you know what, whatever happened with them stays with them. I'm going to be my own person, and that's why you cut the negative ties.
Hmm.
That's why I tell my father, I cut negative ties. Anything negative, like for example, the story of what I seen on the tree, I cut the negative tie because I don't want the negative tie to be attached to me. He's going to stay with him. You
Okay.
know,
Yeah. Yeah, man.
but
That's an interesting story, man. I didn't know that. I'm glad you told that, man.
yeah,
That's pretty intense, dude. But we're
yeah.
ready. Yeah,
I
we're
mean,
ready on our hour, man.
I know, brother.
Yeah, I gotta have you back.
I just wanted to talk about it, because just to let people know, because there's some that might not believe in a higher power. There's some that might not believe that we're spiritually connected. But I'm just here to let you know that we are,
Hmm.
because like I said, I sense her all the time. Yeah, I got in out of situations by her spirit helping me out. So I could, there was a story. Well, I know we got a little bit of time. Quick story.
Hey, go ahead.
There was a girl that grabbed a picture of mine, and she took it without my permission. She took it to a supposedly a witch. The witch was trying to do something to my picture, trying to put a hex on it. And then this witch, she got attacked. She got attacked by something. Throw the picture back at her and told her to give it back to me because my mom was protecting me.
Oh, that's pretty cool, dude.
Well,
Yeah,
she gave
yeah,
me my picture back, and she left, and she never bothered me again.
that's good.
So
Well,
that was
that's
just
good.
a quick story.
I
Now I
mean,
have so many stories, but I know we're
yeah,
limited with time.
yeah, man. Yeah, well, I'll have you back on. We'll talk more. Yeah,
Yeah,
every time I talk to you, you get more and more interesting.
yeah. I have so many stories. It's just you can't say all the stories at once, because that's why sometimes I make my own little videos, and
Yeah,
just try to
yeah,
reach out to people. And that's why I do the videos, to reach out, because I know if I can help, if I say something spiritual to somebody that it touches them here in the heart, and it can make it, when I talk about forgiveness and to forgive somebody and it changes their path in life and
mhm.
better things start happening for them, that's good, because they're forgiven, and forgiveness is part of love. That's
Well,
why I make my videos.
tell people where they can find your videos at.
Yeah, I have videos on positive spiritualist, and I have videos on spiritual and cryptid encounters. I did the spiritual cryptid encounters for my friends. I have a lot of friends to go on the hunt, and that's why I combined it, because I know sometimes when you're out there on the hunt, you might not find a Bigfoot, you might not find a dogman, but you might find something spiritual. So you have to be ready for either or.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Man, too bad I ran out of time. Because that's what I was going to go into that question with you earlier. I talking about going for Bigfoot, and if you thought there was something out there. But yeah, yeah, we'll talk about that next time, buddy.
Alrighty, brother.
All right,
Well,
man.
thank you for having me on the show, brother.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for
And
coming. Thanks to everyone who was commenting in the chat room. I appreciate that.
thank you, everybody that was coming on the chat. I can't see nothing here on the chat room. Probably you can.
Yeah,
Uh, but I'll go look whenever the
yeah,
video's over, and if I can help somebody, if anybody needs going through something, you can always contact me uh, through Messenger or on the Positive Spiritual Cryptid Encounters.
yeah. If not, you can come
It,
contact me, and I'll put you
well,
in
yes,
contact with you too.
this is my good friend right here.
Okay. All right, guys. Y'all
Later,
have a good
Joe.
night. Thanks a lot, man, and thanks a lot to you too, Abe. And hold on, real quick.
Hmm.